I'm Zach. You might remember me from quite a few of my videos. Usually I read you a tale of my own making, but this time I'm going to read, I'm going to do something a little differently. Here. I'm going to read you a tale I'm going to read a story that I first listened to from BBC audiobooks and then read myself. It's a Doctor Who audio adventure. It's a Doctor Who adventure called Engines of War, set during the Time War when the Doctor, his people, the Time Lords, were fighting their greatest enemies, the Dalek race. Now, Now, I'm going to make two parts of this. The first I'm going to read is from Part 2, Gallifrey, and this is going to be the ending scene to Part 2 of Gallifrey, to Part 2. And then the next bit I will read is Part 3, but I'm going to do that in a different video. I will leave the link down below. Okay? Right. Are you ready? Well, first I'll tell you what this is all about. Well, what this bit is going to be afterwards. The Doctor and his companion Cinder have just escaped from the Time Lord city on Gallifrey. But the Doctor needs to stop the Time Lords because they are about to use a weapon called the Tear of Aisha on the anomaly in the Tansler Spiral to stop the Daleks in that star system. But they are willing to destroy thousands of innocent human beings, and the Doctor does not want them to do that. So, the Doctor and Cinder have broken out of prison and are going to stop them. Now we will come to one of the Doctor's hated enemies, Karlax, a Time Lord in the service of the Time Lord President, Rassilon, and we come to Rassilon and Karlax in the Death Zone. Right. Are you sitting comfortably? Good. Right. I shall begin. Chapter 16. Karlax had always detested travelling via the transmat device, the way it made his fingertips tingle for an hour afterwards. The quickening of his heart saw when the particles of his body began to disentangle, unweaving him at a molecular level. Even the very concept of it troubled him, and he recalled lying awake all night in the aftermath of his first trip, many lifetimes ago, wondering whether he was still the same person, or if the process had irrevocably changed him, somehow. Of course, all of this was long before his first regeneration, when the concepts of change and identity had effectively become irrelevant to him. Sorry about that. Irrelevant to him. He realised now that change was inevitable. Just another weave in the long tapestry of life. The key was in ensuring that he managed that change to get what you wanted. Encouraged it, even in a particular direction. Some might call that manipulative, he supposed. Karlax simply saw it as pragmatic. So far, it was an approach that had paid great dividends for him, and he saw no reason to stop now. So it was that he'd come here, to the Lord President's tomb, to speak with him. He was anxious to be the first one to deliver the news, so that he might influence any decisions that came after. Karlax knew exactly what he wanted, and he would do anything in his power to get it. The time was ripe for revenge. The Doctor would get what he richly deserved. Karlax had visited the tomb once before, and he knew what Rassilon was keeping here. They all did. Every member of the High Council had sanctioned the creation of the Possibility Engine. The work had been carried out in the capital, behind closed doors, and the Council had been kept abreast of progress. So, when the time had come to unveil the remarkable new device, however, none of them had been able to look upon it. They'd shunned it, calling it an abomination, and Rassilon had been forced to have it moved to his old tomb in order to keep it out of the way. Now it was barely acknowledged. The High Council knew that Rassilon spoke with an authority bestowed by the engine, but it remained unstated, and Borusa's name was never uttered. That was one thing about which the Doctor was absolutely correct, Karlax begrudgingly admitted. They were all hypocrites, prepared to make the necessary decisions and reap the rewards, just so long as they never had to face the consequences. Time Lords really are terrible people, aren't they? He implied as much to Rassilon earlier that day, whispering in his ear that the Castellan was beginning to develop a conscience, that he didn't have the necessary detachment and to be able to properly fulfil his duties. An incident with the human girl had been evidence enough of that, and now Karlax suspected he'd had a hand in the Doctor's escape. There would be repercussions. He'd reached the entrance to the tower. He stepped inside, bowing his head, mindful of showing due reverence. Rassilon was standing at the foot of the tomb, speaking with the Possibility Engine, demanding that Borusa show him the pathway through the fluctuating chaos of the timelines, that he predict the most effective time to deploy their weapon. Tell me, Borusa, of the Tear of Aisha, what is the true path to victory? How do I ensure its deployment strikes at the very heart of the Dalek cause? Karlax cringed at the sight of the Possibility Engine, cranked up on its metal bed so that Rassilon might look upon it. To Karlax it was like a pale corpse, reinvigorated with life, emancipated, yet filled with a vitality that was not its own. The time vortex was running through its head, filling it with wonders and terrors beyond imagining. In the dim light of the tomb, it glowed with the aura of oscillating regenerative energy. The timelines are no longer clear to me, mumbled Borusa. There is no true path. Every outcome is in flux, and possibilities bloom. The random factor has been introduced which unsettles things. A random factor? Rassilon echoed. What is it? The Dalek weapon? No, my lord. Something else. A knot of potential moving unchecked through the timelines, weaving patterns in the future of the past. You speak in riddles, cursed Rassilon. Riddles and ciphers. I cannot understand you. Karlax hovered in the entrance, unsure how to proceed. He didn't wish to incur his master's wrath, but all the same, there was news that he needed to impart. Lord President, he called tentatively. Rassilon turned. He looked annoyed to see that it was Karlax who had come to disturb him here, in his haven. What is it, Karlax? He snapped. Can't you see I'm busy? My apologies, Lord President, said Karlax. But I bring in grave news from the capital. Our plans could be at risk. I thought to inform you immediately. Rassilon waved him closer. Karlax crossed the mausoleum, hesitant to be so close to the creature that had once been Borusa. Despite his disdain of the manner in which the members of the High Council had insisted on Borusa's removal from the capital, Karlax had grave misgivings about being in such close proximity to the thing. It looked down at him with its weird, flickering eyes and grinned knowingly. Karlax shuddered. He wondered what it was thinking, what it might be seeing when it looked at him. Well, said Rassilon, get on with it. It's the doctor, said Karlax. He's escaped. Rassilon's jaw worked as he ground his teeth, evidently attempting to restrain his composure. Escaped! There was a steely edge to his voice. Karlax had to choose his next words very carefully. Clearly, he was assisted in some way, he said. We have a traitor in our midst. It should be a simple matter to trace the data logs and see who granted the Doctor's TARDIS access to the security protocols. Do it, said Rassilon. I'll have someone's head for this. Karlax had a feeling the High Council would be looking for a new Castellan in the coming days. He suppressed a smile. What of the Doctor? He ventured. He might yet attempt to prevent Commander Partheus from deploying the tier. Yes, said Rassilon. The random factor. He glanced up at Borusa, momentarily lost in thought. Then, after a moment, he appeared to make a decision. I see it clearly now, Karlax. The Doctor is a wild card, a renegade, and he has made his position abundantly clear. He intends to act against us. He must be prevented from influencing the outcome of events. There is only one cause. My lord? Said Karlax. The Doctor must die, Karlax, said Rassilon. Only then can we be sure. Karlax couldn't help his smile from spreading to his lips. You, Karlax, are the only one I can trust with such a significant task, continued Rassilon. Me? Said Karlax, suddenly panicked. This was not at all what he'd expected. He was not a man of action. He'd built his career through the manipulation of others. He'd barely ventured out in a TARDIS since his days in the Academy. Are you sure that I'm adequately equipped for such a pivotal role, my lord, said Karlax. Uniquely so, said Rassilon. You, more than any of us, want him dead. So Rassilon was more perceptive than he looked. Karlax could see that there was no way of changing his mind. He'd walked right into it, and now he'd have to see it through. Still, he mused, at least this way he'd get to see the look on the doctor's face when he died. That would be some measure of consolation. Very well, my lord, he said. Excellent. Time is of the essence. Engage the assistance of the Celestial Intervention Agency. If you are to be the bullet, Karlax, they shall be the gun. Immediately, said Karlax. He turned and walked towards the door, his head spinning. Oh, and Karlax, called Rassilon, as he was just about to step over the threshold. Karlax stopped and looked back. Yes, my lord? If you should fail, do not bother coming back. Karlax swallowed. There were no words for how terrified he felt at that moment. My life or the doctor's, he said with a nod of his head. I understand. So it had come to this. Karlax knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened, he was going to make the Doctor suffer. Right, that was the final scene of part 2. Next is part 3, Into the Eye, but I'm going to do the final part of that bit as well. And, well, I hope you all enjoyed that, and I will also link down below where you can get the book. And, well, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.